in my experience, a lot of hamstring injuries, a causative factor, or at least an important component of the lead up to many hamstring injuries, is a joint injury, a joint or ligament injury. As well, there's running mechanics elements, there's speed exposure elements, there's fatigue elements, all those sorts of things. But lower back injuries and joint injuries, either on the same side or the other side, often seem to precede hamstring injuries in running-based sports. Now, where we're coming from is we're trying to make training testing in that. So if you think about it this way, every step is measured. And at that point, during that step, we know the speed of the athlete, the direction of movement. Were they running forwards, backwards, laterally? Were they turning? Were they running in a straight line? So on and so forth. So if you imagine that we can grab all of those steps during training or during match play, and we can throw them into virtual buckets. And then, if you like, we have a bucket that involves running in a straight line at this speed, between this speed and that speed. So then running in a straight line, we have a bucket for every speed. We also have acceleration buckets and different intensities of acceleration, the deceleration buckets, changing direction, arc running, turning, forwards, backwards, sideways, so on and so forth. So in that regard, just training can become testing because we're getting down to the step level. Then within each step, within the stance phase, we're breaking that stance phase up into its components, initial, mid, and terminal. Then in each swing phase, we're breaking that swing phase up into each of its components, initial, mid, and terminal. So you can see, like Daryl's saying, he's already starting to look at the differences between the mid and terminal swing phase of right versus left leg at a particular speed, which is fantastic. And it's exactly the way I envisaged curious practitioners like Daryl to be using this. So that's fantastic. And now hamstring injuries. I touched on before the fact that we know where they occur, but we haven't been able to visualize that. What I think we need to be looking at now is exactly the relationship. Let's just say there was a lateral ankle sprain at some point. And then 4 weeks after that lateral ankle sprain, that player may come back early from that ankle sprain and still have some movement deficiencies that we're unable to really pick up because we can't see how their stance and swing phase change under fatigue during long training sessions or throughout a match. But then being able to understand the relationship between that stance phase and its effect on the swing phase, leading into a hamstring injury occur, that's where the gold dust will be for me. Daryl mentioned baselining. I think the way that this tech should be used, it's logical that initially it's a rehab tool. That makes sense because during rehab, we want to understand that an athlete has recovered to give us more confidence that they can return to their previous level. But as Daryl suggested, in order to do that, we need a baseline. So that next step is to use this tech to baseline everybody so that if they were injured, we have something to rely upon. The next step is for this to basically be a monitoring tool that's used at all times. If we're using this at all times, then we're able to understand when something has changed. Now, we're not looking at this point to say, red flashing light, this player's about to strain a hamstring. I don't think that's possible at this point. I don't know whether that'll ever be possible. But what we are able to say with a certain degree of accuracy is that something has changed. That information goes into a pool of information with experienced practitioners with other data sources as well to say, okay, is that an important change? Is that something that we need to consider? What might we do to address that change? And for me, that's injury prevention in the real world. There is a lot of information from the tech layer, from Sportscientia, and we're really making an effort to distill that down to the most useful observations and the most useful insights. And that's our philosophy with unencumbrance. We want to unencumber the athlete. We also want to unencumber the practitioner. So we provide a report that essentially says, from this session, using this athlete, based on the data we have on this athlete, these are the areas that have shown that something has changed. And then with more data, we obviously will move towards the insights.